Very good evening to all our viewers and welcome to this week's edition of The Agenda. My name is Toiwanje Bella, your host. Tonight on the show we are privileged to have the leader of the Landless People's Movement, Bernadus Swartbooi, as well as former Swapo think tank member, Dr. Ben Mulongeni. We are here to just have a general conversation really on issues affecting our country, the political atmosphere, the economic atmosphere, and so forth. Gentlemen, what a pleasure to have both of you on the platform. Thank you very much for making time.
Good evening, good evening.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Doctor. Yeah, wonderful.
It's good to see a former Swapo think tank member near me. He's retired now.
He's retired.
It's good to see Doctor after a long time.
Former everything.
Former everything. Yeah, absolutely. I think to kickstart the conversation, Mr. Swartbooi, let's start with the case that you have, you and others, the traditional authorities in particular, that are of the descendants of genocide, have launched or lodged rather in the courts. I know it's a matter that is before court and we can only say so much really, but maybe the principle of it. What is the idea there? What are you doing with what are you seeking?
Look, matters of history must be carefully and sensitively handled, and our view is that our government has failed to recognize the nature of this matter in relation to how people perceive it in their lived experience and in their day-to-day experiences. And therefore, there was a fundamental need for people to sit down with the Germans directly. But it's also part, of course, of the international practice where the victim and the villain must sit down and talk about what happened with a view to iron out the issues. Now, in the instance of our government, the principles of inclusive approach toward that matter have been ignored. And secondly, the Germans, in our view, have essentially been taking the lead in dictating the terms of the discussions. And then finally, the issue is one of quantum. In the matter that is before the court, which, as you correctly said, we are limited to speak, we are dealing with an actual joint declaration, not an obscurity, an actual joint declaration, which is the result of discussions between two governments. And we are saying this matter was not done properly and it must be set aside.
Yeah, wonderful. Doctor, you are an observer of national affairs, and you know, when you, I'm sure you must have seen bits and pieces of what Honorable Swartbooi just said. What is your take?
I've expressed myself on these issues, like on a number of issues. In particular, these issues also the genocide thing. I think we are doing a very big mistake by allowing a situation where it now looks like only some groups or certain groups are affected. It's also with regard to the issue of veterans. It looks like only certain people, veterans, are affected. I think the mature and statesmanship approach, as I said, we should have taken care of these things earlier on and putting them together, because those are issues that can cause problems in the society. Now, I don't want to see, okay, the Namas are fighting their cause, and then these other veterans also, whether they are not necessarily tribal, but it's a group, interest group, separate, so this cannot take us anywhere. We're supposed to put these things to rest and take care of the rest. So I have no problem really. I think the government could have put or brought everybody who's concerned together. Whatever, we must find out whatever is that not sufficient, what is not being done to make people happy, to include them, to think that, look, if you included us, we could have raised this issue, we could take this angle. Look, he's saying the Germans are dictating. I agree, until we're now going to be dictated by foreigners, those who have killed us. Now, I want to tell Comrade Swartbooi that it's not that the Namas were killed or Hereros were killed. Namibians were killed. You see, we allow such a situation where somebody in Kalonga does not feel that pain.
Yeah.
That's we must have a nationalistic, patriotic approach that every Namibian feel, because if you touch the Nama, you touch the Mbaja. If you touch the Mbaja, you touch the Herero. I mean, this is how I feel it as a freedom fighter.
Yeah.
Yes.
That narrative that Dr. Ben is speaking about the question of a sense of belonging, a sense of unity, is one area where our government long lost the plot. He's correct to say, in respect of the veterans question, that only certain groups of veterans were given a significant portion.
Yeah.
Of course, there are those veterans that are still left out or are not still sufficiently catered for.
Yeah.
Now, when I was governor, we had a major problem with people from that part of the country.
Yeah.
They'd say, but I was involved to this extent and in this manner. There were veterans from the Kunene and Ojotonjupa calling and say, but colleagues, this other colleague that is recognized in Oshana, him and I were in the trenches together.
Yeah.
How come he or she is recognized and how come I am not recognized? And this is where we have to, as leaders and as citizens, people like yourself who are influencers, have to think carefully about where we want to take this country and what type of country we want to leave for our children. Recently, one of our colleagues, Henny Sebeb, who's the deputy leader, visited Rwanda. And I had a sit down with him to understand what is the fuss about Rwanda.
Yeah.
And one of the things he says is, look, after the genocide of 94, Kagame came and he said, colleagues, don't talk politics to me.
Yeah.
Don't talk tribalism to me. You don't talk about Hutus, you don't talk about Tutsis, you talk about Rwandans. And people began to have a sense of common and equal belonging.
Yeah.
Now, to get back to the question in that context of the Nama and the Ovaherero that have been at the forefront of the genocide drive because of a genocide extermination order, is that when institutions of state that are there to provide leadership and to lead everybody with the same tenderness, with the same even-handedness, when those institutions begin to sort of undermine that very sense of your sense of belonging, you have instances where people end up going into identities to therefore stage their concerns. Of course, the extermination orders were not just given for the Namas and Hereros. In 1911, it was issued against the San communities, particularly the Hingom communities, so that any Hingom that should be seen around Ochivarongo, Otavi, Grootfontein, Tsumeb area should be exterminated on the spot. These are realities of history. But this government has consistently ignored the plea for a united approach in this matter. And when, at the end of the day, you take care of veterans, dealing with a certain aspect of the past, which is correct, but another aspect of the past you deal with differently and insensitively, it becomes a concern. And that is how you divide society. And it's actually painful that many of these communities that are now in court are the ones that sacrificed to bring about the current Swapo party into power. People were united, people had one aim, one agenda. Eventually, after independence, this unity began to fluctuate, and today we are a country more divided in areas and in ways that we shouldn't be divided on. And it's actually very sad that we have to have this type of approach. And what is nonetheless important is that a case like this begins to send a very strong message to those that colonized African countries to say, we are willing to take you on in our own jurisdictions, because instead of engaging in process of reparations and restorative justice, the erstwhile colonialists began to capture us with development aid so that we forget about or minimize our concerns around historic injustices. And so this is a matter of historic injustices that must be corrected. Yeah. But there is still room for this government to say, as brothers and sisters, let us sit, let us talk. When, and this is my final point on this issue, when we were with the parliamentary committees going around talking about the Genocide Remembrance Day, yeah, you could see the division in this country. You go to areas where predominantly over Herero or Nama, the community meetings will be full to capacity. You go to the northern parts of the country, it's empty. Yeah. Why is that? Something went wrong in how we conversed with ourselves as a country.
That's my problem.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's my problem, yes. Toivo. Sorry to just jump in. Yeah. Toivo, and everybody knows, when I joined Plan, of course I heard about Hosea Kutako when I was in secondary school by those people who were attending OPA meetings, so praised, so appreciated by one of my relatives. They had a picture, said, this is a big man. So, okay, it's Hosea Kutako, must respect him. He's the one who escorted Saint Samnioma to that nation. So this inspiration, I'm becoming aware of Namibianness. Now, when we joined Plan at the border there, the first time we hear that we must follow the example of Hendrik Witbooi, Samuel Maharero, Jacob Morenga, Mandume Andimfayo, Ipumwe Shirongo, and the rest. And we are told by the commissar that the reason why Witbooi could not succeed with the Germans is because we were not fighting jointly together. We did not join forces, although they later returned. We were told that, you hear it, you heard it, our education is so bad, because our people, chiefs, were not united, they were fighting separate. That's why now we are united in one front, which was Swapo. Now we can defeat the white people. If you say that, I believe that the Germans are even laughing, they are enjoying that. That you are not united in demanding reparation. You cannot be, if you don't get united in demanding what's due to Namibians, of course some suffered more, but you must understand that if one suffer, we all suffer. Because the Germans don't think they only wanted to kill Namas. They want to kill every black person. If they didn't come to you, they were going to come anyway. If we get united and successfully get this one right, we'll also be united and address the children's liberation struggle. We get united and address all other things of the past. Now, it seems that you fight your cause. Yes, I repeat, you fight. There's sympathy. And that is only after independence. Something went wrong there. And we need leadership.
Let me ask you this, Dr. Mulongeni. You see, I once wrote in my editorial in Namibian Sun that when our liberators set for the first time to draw up the calendar for Namibia, say for example, public holidays or commemorative days, in my view that genocide should have been top of that list, because there's no human tragedy that has occurred in this country that is bigger than that. To date, there's not, 33 years later, not a Remembrance Day. People are actually fighting, almost begging the state to say, how about this dark chapter of our history? Literally having to make submissions, when I thought that could have been an automatic, sensible thing to do. Do you think things like that actually are helping in any way to unite this country?
Yes, actually, you are not repeating what I'm saying. You are simply amplifying what I'm saying.
Yes.
That we must recognize, yes, we recognize the struggle, the resistance of Witbooi and Maharero Morenga. Then you are lying to me. Then you're just demagogue. If you are saying, yes, this fought. Remember, I have come across in one chapter of Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, the liberation intellectual, where he said the Herero Nama uprising was one of the worst of the 19th century. Lenin himself, who's recognized as an author, as a philosopher, after Karl Marx and Engels, he recognized that. And when we read that, when the white people were looking at him, he said, wow. So So in your country, you got resistance recognized by Lenin. Whether it is Lenin or Mao, whoever, it's recognized because it sends a message. It's recorded in history. What's wrong? In many countries, people got heroes, but they must be given recognition. There are days, you are right, to say, these are the days of the genocide, or the day of resistance. Give it recognition due. These are the days of Kasinga. It's there. It's in your history. Now, as long as we don't do that, we end up Swartbooi say, okay, Ben, go to your Kasinga stories. They say, okay, you go to your
genocide.
Yes.
Because I just want to add to what
Yes, please.
Doctor is saying. You know,
Yeah.
when you read and look at the history of this continent, you see how ethnic politics has broken down societies. I thought when we were still young men and women in the Swapo party that those mistakes will not be repeated. We thought we are in this party for building a better country. And then we eventually left. The evidences of why we left, the deep imprint within the current government of an ethnocentric politics is very real and very sad. Just a month ago, 15,000 people from one language group were transported with buses to Lüderitz in preparation for the green hydrogen project. And the community there is saying, but we are also living here in Area 7. We want those jobs. Why should people be brought from other regions and they are put first as priority to be employed? And we sent our people to go and verify, and they found these people. The mayor of Lüderitz was also complaining that, where do I house these people?
Yeah.
Where do I give them water? Where will they get food from? How do they live? But this is the type of politics that Dr. Ben is saying. You be concerned about your language group and your history. I will be concerned about my language group and my history. And that is very dangerous, because what do we leave for our children when we are no longer here? What is it that we leave for our children? To basically teach them to hate each other, or each one for himself? And then what? And so the responsibility we have in the least, and that is why we thought, let's go to court, is not to further antagonize each other, but to test questions of restorative justice and the principles enshrined in the Namibian Constitution, the values thereof, to test those in our domestic jurisdiction, so that we can see whether our jurisdiction is able to stand up to the challenges of validating our Constitution. Remember, the people that we are taking to task as respondents are very senior people. It's the President, it's the Speaker, it's the Cabinet, it's the Attorney General. And these all office bearers will have to go and explain to the court why they took a number of decisions around the genocide question and what constitutional basis they had to approach matters of this historic and sensitive nature in the way we did. Dr. Ben is again correct. When we are divided as we are, the other people are laughing at us. They are saying these ones have not gotten the house to order. They are brothers and sisters, but at a rhetorical level, not at a practical level. And yet you will see European unity on some of these issues is very, very strong. They don't even want to talk about this issue, because if you talk about German colonialism to the French would say, we can't say much because we also colonized others. You talk to the United States about assistance, the United States will say, we still have a history of the native Indians that we have not dealt with correctly. We don't have the moral high ground to talk about this issue. And so you can go to the British, you can go to the Spanish, you can go to the Portuguese or the Dutch. And so who are you left with? It is your own brethren. The men from Oshana, the men from Oshinena, the men from Tes, the men from Korechas, that must say, let's fight this thing together. And the wisdom of our traditional leaders that wrote and said, let's die fighting together, that wisdom still prevails today.
Absolutely. We go for a quick break and then return for the second part of the show.
Chill Sessions is an entertainment show bringing the latest hits, fashion, and entertainment news. Chill aims at reaching all entertainers, youth, and artistic fans. Catch Chill on NTV, 1up2.com, the Namibian Sun, Chill, and Namibia Media Holdings platform. Chill focuses on a countdown of the latest hits, fashion trends, celebrity interviews, and more. To share your music-related news, products, and services, contact Chill at synergy.com.na. Chill Sessions, bringing art and entertainment to the people. NMH Ad 1 brings you news from all across Namibia. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact NMH1 at synergy.com.na. NMH Ad 1, your lunchtime news companion.
We continue with Dr. Ben Mulongeni and Honorable Swartbooi. Before the break, Doctor, you spoke about how heroes, the leaders of other tribes in our country, you spoke, was it Kapua? What is?
It's not Kapua, it's Jose Kutako.
Kutako, yes. That you know, people were speaking highly of these people, meaning that, you know, there was that sense of belonging, oneness as a country. And if you look at the liberation struggle itself, if you listen to those stories, you hear how comrades from different demographics of our country stood shoulder to shoulder to fight that common enemy. But as soon as we became independent, somehow we just started gradually disintegrating. How did that happen?
Yes, as I said, I think even after independence, in all of our speeches and storytelling and celebrations, even Swapo, our party, particularly Semnioma, I don't hear much from others. I give you my own example. Just last month, I prepared the history of a heroine who was, honored with state funeral.
Yeah.
She fought with plant fighters, but then because I was taught that we got inspiration from those forefathers, and always I start with Hendrik Witbooi, Samuel Maharero, Jacob Morenga, Chamwaha, Mandume, and Ipumbu Shirongo. And I'm also teaching at Pat School, and I included that one in curriculum. the early resistance or anti-colonial resistance. We start with those. And I tell you, as a young man in plan, I thought I was strong because I have that Hendrik Witbooi in me. That's what I was told. I have that Chama in me. Let's fight like those. But the funny thing is that now we're blaming or the failure or the defeat by the colonialists of those years to disunity. But it looks like they were more united. It's only that conditions were different. We are more educated. We got degrees. We have traveled. We have seen the formation of nations. But even to start with as early as the time of Yangon Afrikaner. And I come across the stories when he was, he called all other chiefs together or kings together, and he established an assembly, an annual assembly where they can come and talk. And also had an agreement that no one in your own tribal kingdom should to allow or give land for exploration to the British or to any foreigners without agreement with other chiefs. To me, as a political historian, a political scientist, I know, as John could see, these are a signs of the formation of state. Because they've agreed on a number of things, I cannot go through them now, that annually we come together and discuss that and discuss that. And they were even discussing part. And there's one now I have added through my research, Chanika Shanashirungo from Manganjera. He attacked Okakweo because he wanted to support his brothers, the Namas and the Hereros. And the Hariyambingana came here. So those are the inspiration that we have. And they should continue. Now, as Honorable said, look, the Germans, they will not support you. They will not move because they enjoy your divisions. They can even ferment further divisions. That's what we are saying, divide and rule. We're blaming everything, all the evil on apartheid was dividing us. But now we are dividing ourselves. Africans do not learn. And that's my biggest problem I have. Yeah. We learn a lesson, which means we cannot learn a lesson, Bernadus Swartbooi. Politician, we must learn a lesson. We cannot continue blaming South African apartheid. We must take bold decision and preach unity, unity. That's what we want.
Your take, Clinton, again, you joined Swapo as a young man, and you served in the party structures at the highest level possible. And one day you just decided, no, this is no longer my home. What led to that bold, I mean, you had these nice government positions, governor, deputy minister, very revered in the structures of the party, and then you just, left.
There were two major things that were very strong in my decision to leave, and it built up over a number of years. One was the extent to which corruption became normalized, and that particularly when I became deputy minister, the conversation in cabinet committees, when you have tea breaks and in engagements, where some ministers and some deputies would say the key thing is to make sure that your check account is as big as possible. And that therefore the service to the people was a secondary quest. The check account was the first quest. The second one twist was that even when unspoken, you were made to feel that you're a secondary member of Swapo. The songs that were sung, part of it, of course, through the history of how Swapo started, first as an Ovambo People's Organization, OPC, later Swapo, which history you can't deny, which is a proud and gallant history itself, but that you then recognize that this party never really fundamentally transformed in its culture and in its acceptance of all of us as equal and core. There was just one song or two or three that would, for instance, be in Damaranama. There is no song that was in Afrikaans, for instance. Very few in Oshiherero and so on. So you found yourself as a secondary member that knew that this chap comes from this Ovambo sub-clan. They are the majority. You better follow this chap because you come from a smaller ethnic group. And that grew to bother some of us because even your contributions, howsoever big and beautiful they were, if not supported by someone from the Ovambo descendancy, your ideas would not go through. So you had to confront yourself and say, do I really belong here? Is my identity a problem here? Or does it only make me qualify to a certain degree, whereafter I need now to change and transform myself fundamentally, psychologically, and therefore become subsumed in a different ethnic culture, including learning that language because I'm from a minority group, so that I can get acceptance. And you can see that politics still happening where colleagues from, in many instances, the non-Oshiwambo groups would merely want to talk about the history that the colleagues from the Oshiwambo descendancy of Namibians want to talk about. Because if they have to talk about issues in Tses or issues in Bersheba or issues in Sesfontein, we say, but colleague, let us not be tribalist, let us be nationalist. And when we engage these issues, realize that if you make any endeavor, and in that endeavor of yours you do not have Oshiwambo speaking people, somebody sees it as not being nationalistic. And that has been the problem that I have in the genocide struggle also. Because it's Ovaherero, Nama, Damara, and San affected in the greatest proportion possible, to the point of complete decimation. Other communities feel because their names are not heard there, they can't support. Only when they are acknowledged in a proportion that satisfies them can they be part of supporting this quest. And this is what I experienced with the genocide memorial conversations in the North, where some of the colleagues just say in the public meetings, these things are not important, there are more important things. But if I had said that about Kasinga Day in a meeting in the North, people would have been offended. But it was okay to offend others with words that are very brutal, to say, people were killed, so what? It's fine, that's long gone, we must move on. That was very painful, but these are the realities. So when we left Swapo, we did so with meaning and intent to build a new structure, a new platform that would not be ethnocentric in its posture, but would not deny the truth about history of all other persons, whether they are Tswanas, whether they are people of mixed race, whether they are people from the Ovaherero community. That's why, as a political party, we are comfortable to be part of an application that speaks to the concerns, in this instance, of Ovaherero and Nama, because we don't see ourselves from an ethnocentric perspective to get involved in that matter, but from the principle of restorative justice to support. In fact, had the communities that are now with us as co-applicants been different, had they been Silosi or had they been Kavango, we would probably also have been part of such an application because of the principle that is contained in this issue.
Yeah, yeah. Doctor, you have served in the think tank of Swapo. What was what used to be the nature of these conversations, especially in terms of transformations and inclusiveness? Because again, he rightly acknowledged that, the party started from that Ovambo background, but eventually it became, at least on paper, a national movement. How did you guys discuss issues related to making sure that everybody felt at home?
Not only on paper, it really became a national movement. And of course, I don't want to counter what Honorable is saying.
You must counter him.
No, it's actually unfair and insensitive, even if you don't disagree with certain things, to kind of ignore the issues that he raised, because if I didn't see them, does not mean they don't exist, or I do not even perceive them that way. For example, I could have said, look, you even became a deputy minister, which some from the minority group did not come. You elevated, but still, that does not remove.
Where does the power lie to distribute resources fairly and equitably?
Yeah.
Whether you're a deputy minister or finance coming from this or that ethnic group, or whether you are a minister of fisheries from a mixed race community, where does the real power lie? And this is really the question that we must unpack, because if colleagues travel for a weekend to the north with black Mercedes-Benzes, discussions would be held up in the north. Those discussions become government policy Sunday, Monday morning. So you can have how many ministers mixed race? I understand what Dr. Ben is saying. Of course, politics also deals with images. There is this inclusive perspective. You see everyone is there. That is true. But where the real power lies to influence decisions and to influence the share of who gets what, where, and how much, that is where also the fundamental problems became very real. If you today look at our government, they gave 72 million to the flood victims in the north to help our compatriots in the north. Very bad floods, Efunja, of course. There are reasons why the floods are like that, and we have to be sensitive. We thank our government that they really acted under very difficult circumstances indeed to help our colleagues in comparison. And if there was more money, as Honorable Utoni Nyoma said, more should have been given. That we are in solidarity with. Reverse back to last year, when there were massive fires in the Rehoboth area, and then in the Arwap Quest area and Karasburg area, not a single cent was given to those farmers and those communities who suffered.
A statement.
There was just a statement. There was just a statement, but no single support for the damages they suffered. In fact, so bad was the government response that people had to go and do fundraising on their own to sort of get back on their feet again. Some of them were paid out by insurance, but most of them have until today to fend for themselves. Yeah. Why is that? Similar circumstances in which devastation occurs, but different responses. And you can say, well, in this instance, there is a head of state who speaks a different language, but where is the real power in terms of taking decisions? Where does it lie? You have the procurement board. They have now mixed it, the board, with few other people. There is a Kavatene who's the chairperson. But who are the administrative people in charge of the procurement board who are not seen and who take the actual and real decisions? Where is the condemnation of the Windhoek campus of UNEM taking one ethnic group in the medical school? Where is the shock, the awe, the condemnation to say, colleagues, this is not the type of country that we fought for. This is not the future we want to build, and so on. So some of these things you can say are mistakes, but when mistakes become so fundamental that they shape the common administration of the state, such that your state institutions themselves are now the fundamental sponsors of ethnocentric approach to things, becomes problematic. It really becomes problematic. And you just get worried about where is this country going. You look at, and I had conversations with some of the young people at the prisons, the new recruitments now. I was with some of them that say, but that cuckoo, that auntie, that man, that one, they couldn't even run. In the exams that we wrote, they got zeros. How is it that they are now prison wardens in the government system? And you then begin to understand why I was shocked why in countries like Kenya, Of course, Somaliland has its own problems. But in a country like Nigeria, where Boko Haram would have such strong support, where the Islamic State would have such strong support, because gradually people begin to lose their identity in relation to the state and begin to retreat into other ways to undermine that statehood because it does not serve you as a person. Right now we have oil discoveries. Yes, another political party has won other than Swapo. LPM has won that area, but the central government is refusing to talk to us about the oil, to say, colleagues, what should we be doing? Where can we put hands together, government to government? One is a central government, the other is a regional government, the other is a local government. Why is that? And then you keep on undermining each other. Instead of governing, instead of working together, you keep on undermining each other about who is doing better, who is not doing better, and so on. So the concern about our statehood toys, from the position where we are as a party that is governing 2 regions, as a party that has been exposed to a local and regional government and to National Assembly, you get more and more worried. I must also hasten to say that not everybody in Swapo is bad. Not every apple bag, because few apples are rotten, has all apples that are bad. There are colleagues that are concerned in the ruling party about the direction of this country, just as we are concerned. And we converse, we engage, and we have a common denominator called Namibia that we must all stand up and protect and fight for. It's not happening. In your budget alignment, it's not happening. We are repeating the disbursements of amounts without affecting structural changes. I thought that given post-COVID challenges, this year we'll have bigger investment in agriculture so that we can create jobs instantly almost through agriculture. All that we have for the development budget is a 4.2 billion. After you build the roads, that money is gone. These are real concerns that we have, and we've got to protect the stability of this state. All of us, we have to protect the stability. The way it's going, I get more worried. 117 computers get taken, not stolen, get taken from the Electoral Commission. There's no break-in. The chairperson tells us there's no break-in. But this is a problem here, 117 laptops. Nobody has been fired, nobody has been disciplined. It's our statehood. It's the sacrifices that people like Dr. Ben made and many others that are not here today that go to waste because we are not serious about maintaining discipline. That's very important in society, discipline. And that's why Gertjie Witbooi and those types of people in politics cannot have space because discipline is fundamental. The Chinese, they are very careful about repeating the mistakes, opium and all these things, because when discipline broke in their ranks, that's how they were colonized. We have to have discipline. Political leaders, administrators, activists, business leaders, because we need to build our society.
Absolutely. Yeah, so this in a situation like that, you would want now to run to the south and appease the electorate there.
No, doctor, you quietly advise.
I said I want to appeal to. You know that I told one politician that Jesus' example is that he abandoned the whole crowd of sheep and go and look for the one that is lost, one only. So in that analogy then, we're supposed to go to the south, where people have still abandoned. So it's a issue of judgment.
Twice I just want to come on Doctor making it seem very obvious that Swapo will win. I understand he carries a membership card with the party school there, Swapo and so on. But,
but from your statement, you are saying
conclude for us.
The flood was assisted.
Therefore, no.
From
a journalistic point of view, no.
Yeah, in 1 minute.
If you look at the last election, Swapo became a rural party. in terms of the local and regional council elections. And they performed very good with the EVMs. And they performed very poor with the worst type of system, the ballot paper. We are going to use the ballot paper. Swapo will maintain a majority of maybe 50 seats only if they manipulate the system. But their days, glory days, are far, far gone. I'm on the ground, I see it. The southern part that we have won used to be a stronghold of Swapo. No longer. We are penetrating in areas where Swapo used to be strong. It no more is stable. In fact, we even have our well-functioning officers in the north that are recruiting people every day. So it is not absolutely sure that Swapo will win unless the 117 computers saga can maybe help them. But politics has changed, dimensions have changed, and the messaging has changed. I see that there is also pressure on opposition parties to do more, which is good and well, but it has also opened up space for democracy and for people to really debate things. So I think 2024 will be a very contested year. I think the country must be given to a different generation of leaders, not to the generation of Netumbo. We have tried the generation of Sam Nujoma. Sam Nujoma was actually very young when he came in compared to Hage Geingob or compared to Bohamba. We gave that generation a chance again of Hage Geingob, of Bohamba. Not much moved with Bohamba, infrastructure here and there, roads in particular, dams and so on, housing under Bohamba. Under Geingob, a whole different story, perhaps because the economy was absorbed a lot by what Bohamba them did and so on. Netumbo, I don't think she can carry the hopes and aspirations of the majority of Namibians, whichever region they come from. These people have been around. There is nothing new that they can give. And when you look at the ANC, how they are disintegrating, is the same level of disintegration of these old former liberation movements. When you look at ZANU-PF, how they are disintegrating. Or when you look at Zambia, how the changes have occurred in Zambia. When you look at how UNITA has grown, in fact, that the results may have been tampered with and so on. There is a change in terms of how young people are perceiving their current conditions and their reality. And I just pray for peace and stability as we go into the next elections. But it's very exciting. And I know Dr. Ben and I will be contesting on opposite sides. And
yes, my colleagues here, Honorable, is talking about generations. But I'm not really strongly believe that generation make a difference. AGS in terms of energy, new ideas maybe, but it's all about leadership.
Well, that's what Swapo doesn't have. Yeah. So Doctor is admitting.
We don't have it.
That's exactly what
Swapo
Swapo
lacks. It's not about
lacks.
Swapo, we don't have it. Both sides, it takes two to tango.
No.
No, so fine.
33 years.
No,
we are providing that
fine,
leadership.
Fine. Whether he's in Swapo or somewhere else, he's just a human being. Yeah. Africa does not have that leadership. So Swapo is not ruling as somewhere. As you mentioned, does not have Swapo. It's Africa doesn't have that leadership. If we have tackled to the issue of the genocide together, as Swapo, my beloved young men could not have left. If we tackled the veteran issues and the youth issues,
none of those things.
None of those things. You agree with me? It's leadership. It's leadership which is required. When I mean leadership in every aspect. That's all. Yeah.
And Swapo has been at the helm of all of it. Yeah. So when Doctor says there is a lack of leadership, he must point it to the party that he comes to.
That's not politicking.
Yeah.
I'm saying Africa doesn't have leadership.
No, I disagree.
Okay.
Africa has leadership, but the old refuse to go, and the young ones go on.
No, we want to get a chance now.
Or they are fleeing, going to exile, because the old that have no ideas cling to power regardless of what happens to society.
Yeah.
But thank you, Dr. Ben, for acknowledging what we've always been saying, that your party doesn't have leadership.
Okay.
My leadership. Thank you, Mr. Swartbooi, for coming through.
Thank you.
Please, very important. Thank you for making time, both of you. I really appreciate it. There was tonight's show. I thought it was very, very good in terms of the views expressed by the two guests tonight. Thank you for watching and have a blessed week ahead.